So the next books I have to talk about are rereads for me, and that is going to be The Stone Sky, as well as no. It's a sign I should get my shit together. The characters are incredibly complex. They are Hey, how's it going? How's life? My name is Sophia. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to be doing a recent reads. This video might be shorter than my other recent reads simply because I have dedicated videos for some of the books. The other books I've already read, and I've already talked about those books in wrap-ups. So I'm going to try and quickly go through those books. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into my recent reads. Alrighty, so the very first book I have to talk about is going to be The Dragon of Genk by K.S. Veloso. I have done a dedicated review for this entire trilogy. I will leave that linked up above or down below if you guys want to check that out. I highly recommend that video. In my personal opinion, I think it's one of the best videos that I've done on this channel. So like, if you want to watch it, I highly recommend. But anywho, in the first book, you are following our main character, Talion, who is known within this world as the Bitch Queen. On the night of her coronation, she exiles her husband, and then fast forward a couple years later, she gets a note from him letting her know that he would like to meet up. So she decides to meet up with her husband within this empire. As the story progresses, Talion starts learning about certain things that will have a major impact on her kingdom and things like that. It's a very simple synopsis, but I promise you this book is so much more than that. I absolutely adored Talion as a character. In the first book, I found her to be quite intellectual and quite resourceful. In the second and third book, I felt like some of the decisions she made were questionable to say the least, but I still loved and adored her as a character. I also love Kine. He is a thief with a moral compass, and so if you like that type of character, I feel like you would really like this book. The magic system is fairly soft, fairly easy to get into. It's not the biggest part of this series, but it does play a major role in this book, more so than the first two books. Like I said before, if you want to know my more detailed thoughts about this entire trilogy, I will leave my review linked up above and down below. Highly recommend you guys check that out. So the next two books I have to talk about were rereads for me, and that is going to be The Fifth Season and The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. In the first book, you are following our main character Esun, who comes home to find that her son has been murdered and her daughter has been kidnapped by her husband. So she goes on a quest to find her daughter and murder her husband. Also within this world, there are these post-apocalyptic events known as fifth seasons, and as the story starts, it's the beginning of the season. So Esun not only has to find her daughter, but she also has to find her while it's basically the end of the world. I absolutely love this trilogy. It's one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I think it's so incredible and so well written. Because this is a reread for me, I already have wrap-ups where I discuss both books in more details. So as I said, I'll leave that linked up above or down below. My friend Tammy also did a review of the first book, and honestly, it's such a good review. I highly recommend you pick that up. Like, Tammy's reviews are one of the best, in my humble opinion, on this platform, and so I will leave that linked up above or down below for you guys to check out as well. I gave the fifth season 5 stars. And then The Obelisk Gates, 4 stars. It's still a good book. I still loved it, but I will say this is my least favorite in the trilogy, but it's still well written and still amazing. The next book I have to talk about is honestly probably one of my more disappointing reads of 2020, and for me that is going to be Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. All right, so in this story you are following 2 perspectives. The first one is a guy named Jim Holden. He's the captain of this spaceship, and then the other one is Detective Miller. One day Jim and his crew get a distress signal to this abandoned ship, and so when they go to help this ship, they discover some secrets about the universe that they probably shouldn't know. The second perspective you're following is Detective Miller, who is a washed up has-been who is hired to find this girl named Julie and send her back home to Mars. Within this world, humanity has been able to colonize the moon, Mars, as well as the asteroid belt known as the Belt. And our story goes from there. I don't know how coherent that synopsis was, but that's the best you're gonna get from me. I think my biggest gripe with this entire book was the characters. I didn't really care for any of them. I thought Jim was a self-righteous, idiotic, pain in the ass asshole. And that's me putting it in a nice way. Detective Miller, he was okay. He was a lot more tolerable than Jim Holden, but I still didn't like him. I wasn't as attached to him as I felt I could have been. I also think another issue that this book has is the way it wrote its female characters. None of the women in this story have agency at all. They all exist to be the love interest of the main protagonist. And one female character, her only purpose is to exist in the fantasies of this one man. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. And then like there's another female character, a lot of female characters, but there was like this other female character, a person of color, obviously she's Nigerian, and she gets sacrificed for the sake of this man. She gets sacrificed for the sake of this mediocre man. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I read that part and I was like, are we really in this day and age, are we really killing off black people for funsies? I don't know, it just didn't sit right with my spirit. But like the thing is, if you watch that reading vlog, I tried to look past that questionable aspect, but the thing is, the more I read the book, the more I couldn't stand the characters. And so by the time I got to the end, I absolutely hated it. Because I didn't like the characters, I found it very difficult to care about the plot. I will say that the plot is engaging, it's pretty fast-paced, but the thing is, if I don't care about your characters, it's going to be difficult for me to care about the plot unless the plot is like absolutely 100% amazing. I honestly don't care. I feel like I'm being so mean to this book, but I don't know, what can I say? The plot hits the ground running from beginning to end. I thought that the prologue was very well done, very well written, and that's the reason why I had such high hopes. It's kind of like the same situation as Rage of Dragons, where you read the prologue and you think, ooh, this is gonna be a new favorite, and then you continue reading and you just slowly descend into madness, and by the time you get to the end, you're just like, why? Why did I waste my time reading this book. The strongest aspect of the book for me is definitely the world building. I loved the world building and how it was handled. I also really enjoy the political machinations and the mystery element that the story had going on. I thought like those aspects were the best aspects. And honestly, I think that was the reason why I continued reading, even though I absolutely hated the characters, was because I was so engaged with the world building and the political machinations that I just tolerated the characters. You can tell that a lot of thought and a lot of care went into the world building. And so I will say, in terms of the world, it's probably a 5 out of 5 stars. In terms of my overall enjoyment, I ended up giving this a 1 star. If you want to see my descent into madness, I will leave my reading vlog linked up above or down below for you guys to check out. So the next book I have to talk about is going to be a Chaos Rising book club pick, and that is going to be A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontornvat. I believe is how you pronounce her name. This story is a Les Miserables Thai-inspired fantasy. In this story, you are following two perspectives. The first one, his name is Pong, and he was born in Namwan prison. He dreams of escaping, and one day he actually manages to do just that. The second perspective you're following, her name is Nok, and she decides to go after Pong in order to bring back honor to her family's name. Within this world, there is no light, and every light they get is created by the governor. And our story goes from there. I adored this book. I loved this book so much. It was such a sweet, precious, whimsical story to me. I absolutely adored Pong as a main character. He is literally a precious baby trying to do his best in life. And if you couldn't tell, that is my favorite character type. I will say that every single one of the characters we're following aren't perfect. They are flawed individuals. They're incredibly well fleshed out, but you understand their motivations and why they do the certain things that they do, and I thought that that was incredible and amazing. I also really loved the relationship dynamics, especially like Pong with his best friend. I loved those two together, and Pong and the monk. It was just like a precious, sweet little found family moment that I absolutely loved and adored, and honestly, I needed more. I needed more of that. The character dynamics are just impeccable in my opinion. The plot was super fun and engaging. I had a really good time. It was very fast-paced and easy to get through. Granted, it is a middle grade, so that might have something to do with it, but it was fun nevertheless. I will say I didn't particularly enjoy Nak as a main character. I think she's the only character that I actively disliked within the story. However, I do think that the way the author handled themes of privilege through Nak's perspective was incredibly well done, nuanced, and amazing, and I really appreciated that aspect of the story. I may have gotten emotional. I may have shed a tear or two because the ending just like punched me in the gut. Like there's like a specific scene that had me all up in my feels, and I freaking love that scene. It's just so precious to me. Overall, I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it so freaking much. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. The final books I have to talk about are also a Chaos Rising book club pick, and that is going to be The Black Tides of Heaven and The Red Threads of Fortune by Neon Yang. In the first book, you are following two twins as their mother sends them off to live in this monastery. It is discovered that one of the twins is actually able to tell the future, and they are sent home back to their mother to be used as political pawns, basically. What's interesting about this world is that every person under the age of 10 is gender neutral, and so they use they them pronouns, and it isn't until they reach a certain age where they get to choose which gender they want to be. I thought that was a really interesting part of the story, and I actually really enjoyed that aspect. The characters in this story are very complex and well written. None of the characters are just good people 100% of the time. They are morally gray. The way the author explored grief within both characters was so well done, and even though I wasn't as attached to the characters as I could have been, at one point I cried because something happens and it just breaks your heart, and instead of just skipping over the grieving process, the author takes their time delving into the emotions of that character and how it affects that character's life and the trauma it leaves behind. And so I thought that was so incredibly well done. The magic system isn't explained at all. So if you're the type of person who likes hard magic systems, I don't know if you would really like this one, because the way the magic system is explored in this book, you just have to go with the flow and just suspend your disbelief. Is that what that is? Suspend your disbelief? I think that's the saying. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, you gotta do that. Personally, I don't mind magic systems. I don't have a preference for hard or soft magic systems, so I like it either way. I thought the magic system was fun. It was a fun time. It was cute. I will say that the second book goes into more depth with the magic system just a bit, but I still wouldn't expect a full-blown analysis of how the magic system functions within this world. The pacing was a lot. especially in the first book. It was just non-stop, and there were a lot of time skips, and I almost wish that this was a full-length novel. That way we can go into more details with the pacing. But it's interesting because the tone and the pacing of the second book is completely different from the first. The second book slows down just a bit as we explore this one particular character and how they're dealing with the consequences of the first book. I feel like writing novellas can be particularly challenging simply because you have to do the world building, plot, character development, all of that. You only have like a finite amount of time to do all of that, and I feel like the author was trying to do a lot, but because they tried to do it in such a short amount of time, I feel like certain things were missing, and I wish it was a full-length novel. That way the author could have expounded upon those particular points a bit more. I ended up giving the first book 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I didn't give the second one a rating simply because I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest. I do think that both books are well written and amazing, and I am curious to continue on with the series to see how that goes. I've heard that the second book is a completely different format, and they have things like case files and notes sprinkled throughout the entire book, and so I feel like I might read that one physically just so I can see all the notes and stuff going on. Okay, so that was my incoherent recent reads video. If you've read any of these books, feel free to comment down below. Let me know how you felt about any of these books. If you've reached the end of the video, feel free to leave a dragon emoji for Dragon of Genk. If you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope to see you guys soon with another video, and until then, I will see you soon. Bye.